I was 2 years old, when I was dedicated to the cause of Lucifer, I was at that point a seventh generation witch.
I was laying there, practically naked, and I had her hold me as if I was a baby. I couldn't talk. I couldn't open my eyes. I believe my eyes were rolled up back in my head.
There was evidence of human sacrifice on this site. One of my first questions I asked God, is there evidence of human sacrifice? Now looks around there. Yes. We found the man with his fingers like who was Richard Zachary.
It started to come down the stairs and there were disgusting smells. And at that point, just basically said, do you know what they did to us? And that's when I fled back home.
But no, they would touch me. They would take pictures of my head if they wanted to communicate with me. Human sacrifice. Human sacrifice. Human sacrifice. Human sacrifice. Implants are real, okay? You know, we've got them on X-ray, we've got them on CAT scan, we've got them on the Gauss meter, which measures magnetic field, 7.5. We've got them on an ultrasound machine. It's right there. It's hard, physical evidence, not delusionary.
All right, guys, welcome back to Conspirinormal. It's your host, Adam Sane, and we have Mr. Luke in the house.
Luke Skyrider.
That's right, and producer Rob's here.
Howdy ho.
He's a little tired tonight. Producer Jesus is a little tired.
DJ Jesus.
Well, it's been about a couple of weeks since we last met, guys, and how was everybody's Halloween?
It's pretty fun, man. I guess I'll go first. Since I'm the most important on the show and everything.
You are, man. You are the life. You're the wind beneath our wings.
Please.
We live vicariously through you, so
I'm boring now. Like that's the truth. I'm boring now. Like I'm all
we must be really boring then, because Rob and I still think you live an exciting life.
I guess. I'm all settled down. My girlfriend in an expensive apartment
and stuff, dude.
Halloween was cool though. We were supposed to go to 4 different parties, and we got so wasted it ended up being 2 parties. But the second one,
like you had the expectation of 4, but you know that's
exactly.
why we're saying your life's exciting, man.
But the second one we went to was her work party, and a fight broke out between a leprechaun and a guy dressed as Uncle Jeb from National Lampoons. Wait, that's not the right guy.
And you went as
I went as Silent Bob, and
very appropriate.
I got a lot of praise about my costume. I feel like it was pretty spot on.
Yeah, you nailed it.
Thanks, dude.
Didn't have a Jay with you?
No, I couldn't. I don't have any friends that look like Jay. Not even close. I mean,
you look just like Silent Bob without a trench coat, though. So it was kind of just
kind of natural.
Yeah, well, but if you took the trench coat off, like at the skate park, then because we had like a costume bash at the skate park, a pool party, and nobody knew who I was with the jacket off. They're like, "What are you supposed to be?" And I had to like put it back on for them. They're like, "Oh." So,
what about yourself, Rob? How was your Halloween? Did you go trick or treating with the?
No, I did. I missed most of it. I got home just in time to see like the tail end of trick or treaters coming to. Because this is the first time we've lived in a neighborhood where trick or treaters come in a long time. I was kind of excited about it, but the kids did save me some good candy, so they know the routine.
They're better.
Yeah. This is a hot neighborhood for trick or treating too, man. There's like hundreds of kids in this neighborhood for Halloween.
It's such a huge, just huge area, just all residential. Yeah, I got my usual Reese's peanut butter cups. I was happy.
Yeah. I myself really didn't do anything. Just worked all day and then came home and went to sleep because the next day I drove down to Atlanta to go to the last day of the Walker Stalker Con.
Oh yeah, I haven't seen you since then. How was it?
It was good. The Harp twins were there, Luke.
Yeah, I know. I got some pictures from you.
Luke loves the Harp twins.
See, who's the one living life on the edge?
Oh, that's true. you know, I'm used to going to these conventions, and it's been a long time since I've gone to a conference. But I'm used to going to these things where people, like, if we had gone to Paradigm Symposium back in October, which we're still planning on going, people would have been a lot more, I think, accessible. We would have been able to talk to people that you would care to speak to. The speakers, you could approach them later on. It just seemed at this thing like you had the Walking Dead cast members that were there, and I mean, it was just kind of obscene, the prices of some of the, like, to get a picture or to take a selfie with these people. Just seemed like kind of like just a really obscene prices. Like, I've got to, for instance, this was in the line to see the guy who played the governor, and it said autograph $50, selfie $30, awesome memory free. So
you get an autograph picture and he makes what I make in a day.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And multiply that by probably a shitload of people. I mean, 500 people maybe, because they're all flocking to see the main characters. People were waiting in line. We're in this huge, it was like the World Congress Center downtown Atlanta. This huge area.
The $30 for a selfie is somewhat reasonable, because, like, if there's someone that you, in a character that you really idolize, like in a show, that's almost worth it. $30 ain't much anymore, but everything else though, that's
an autograph too. $50.
That's dumb.
That's dumb. I would even kind of disagree about the selfie thing. I mean, apparently, and my friend told me this, that I went down there with. He lives down in Atlanta. He told me that the kid that plays Carl on The Walking Dead, like, to get a picture with him was like $83.
Do they get
to get a picture with this kid?
So, do they get paid to go to these? Is that the only money they're making?
It might be. I think they might be getting some kind of payment to be there. Now, some of them actually live in Atlanta, so it's not like it was a huge deal for them to come to the downtown to the World Congress Center. Like, I know the kid that plays Carl, he's from Atlanta, and a few other people that maybe they probably live there.
We've been planning this for months.
Yeah, they live there in that area.
Well, all the shooting is done.
Right, all the shooting is done there, and there's people that are that either they come and they stay there, or there's other actors that are actually live there. There were some people that were a little more accessible, like some of the smaller characters, like not the major characters, but some of the more minor characters. I think a lot of them were kind of depending on probably making money off of autographs. And a lot of people, you didn't see a lot of people like flocking to them. Like, it wasn't like Norman Reedus, the guy who plays Daryl, the most popular character on the show. And it was packed all day over there. People waiting for hours and hours in line.
So do you think there's more people at a with him. You think there would be more people at a porn star convention or the one you're talking about?
I'd probably say it might be just about equal.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there was a whole bunch of people at this thing. I did, however, I went up and actually spoke to, because my friend and I, we kind of had this idea that we wanted to, if we were going to talk to some of these people, we should ask them about like some other projects that they're doing. And so this is kind of interesting, kind of has something a little bit to do with our show. Approached this guy named Steve Coulter. He plays, and anybody's a Walking Dead fan, he plays the guy named Reg, who's like the leader of the husband of the leader of Alexandria. This means nothing to Luke. But you guys know, you know who I'm
Alexandria, Tennessee, dude. I've been there. It's right down the road.
But he was also had a very bit part but kind of an important part in the movie Kill the Messenger about Gary Webb and the article he wrote called Dark Alliance about the exposure of drug shipping drugs from Nicaragua up into Los Angeles. And he actually plays like a CIA guy that indirectly threatens Webb's family. So I walk up to him and I say, you were really sinister in that movie, And so we just started having this discussion about Gary Webb and what he thought. And so it might be somebody I might think about getting on the show, that was in that movie.
Rob, if you want a beer, man, I'll trade you one for like a shot or two.
This is the ambiance we have on Conspirinormal. But as far as like, I just felt like it was kind of an impersonal thing. You know, like you really couldn't approach anybody. The Harp Twins did have their table though. You could go talk to the Harp Twins.
Yeah, you don't need to be around the Harp Twins, dude. It's gonna.
I was joking with Rob. I said we need to get the Harp Twins to do a Harp version
get
of
ugly.
Conspirinormal.
It's gonna get pretty or ugly depending on how you look at it.
That'll be great, man. We'll get you to collaborate with them. Get some intro music.
Exactly.
I would love that.
I'm not saying don't go to these things, like, but first of all, you're going to pay the cost of the admission, and then second of all, you're going to go in there and you're going to pay $60-something to get somebody's autograph, or to take a picture with them. To me, that's really not worth it.
What else was there other than
Bless you.
like
Because of the time.
Thank you.
autographs and photos? Like, what else do they have going on? Is there?
Yeah, that's pretty much
presentations
it. Well, there was
curse
panel.
me.
There were some panel discussions that they had. So you could go and they had the governor and the guy who played Herschel. You know, they had a panel discussion with them, and they had T-Dog, and they're supposed to have Michael Rooker, who played Merle on the show, but he didn't even show up. And so they had those guys, and then they had like a smaller stage, and one of which the Harp Twins played on. So, but I can say that was probably the highlight of it. Was probably the Harp Twins, for sure.
Yeah.
Would have been Luke's.
They do covers of Metallica and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, they do.
So cool.
Actually, I heard him playing. What was it? Nothing Else Matters. I could hear that in the hall when they got started. So they go around to all those conventions, man, because Walking Dead, Dragon Con, all that kind of stuff. That's just kind of like what they do.
They've got it figured out. I wish I could do that for a living.
Well, it's like they're big in with like the whole science fiction and fantasy geek culture. You know,
I met a dude the other night.
I guess when you play harps, I guess that's kind of how it goes.
You know that senpai guy that's trending right now, you know, because it's all an act. You know, he's not.
Yeah.
I guess he really is that nerdy, but he's acting extra like nerdy for the YouTube hits. I met a dude just like that at Waffle House the other night. and this
Was it
guy,
somebody trying to like copy him or something, or just
No, he's just really that dorky. Like, my girlfriend was sitting there trying to eat her meal, and he's just hovering over her, just talking to her. She can't even take a bite because she's having to like respond to every statement, you know, that he's making toward her. And so she puts him off on me, and she's like, "Luke likes anime," and he like turns to me like all wide eyed and everything.
Oh, really? You like anime?
Well, have you seen this? Have you seen this? Have you seen this?
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, there was, over Halloween, there was a very important Exorcism Live that took place. And we actually know some people that have been on this show that have done this, Exorcism Live. I just wanted to read this.
What is Exorcism Live?
Okay, well, it's like there was the Exorcist movie was based off of an actual case from the late 40s. It was actually a little boy, not a little girl, as was portrayed in the movie. And in St. Louis, there supposedly was an exorcism that started at a particular house and later moved to a mental hospital that was further into like downtown St. Louis. And the house is still there. And I guess that it is being, I don't think that it's ever actually stood empty, but supposedly there's paranormal activity that happens there. And there's all these, supposedly people have been frightened by that. And so they've got new ownership, and apparently they wanted to, I guess, get these people in to exorcise the house. And a lot of people thought that the exorcism was going to be of a live person.
That's what I had in mind.
Yeah. You see that it's kind of like the terminology there is a little weird, because normally exorcism is like I've always thought was like more of a person. Removing, yeah, like a house cleansing is more like what they're doing. But like I saw somebody, the Tennessee Ray Chasers are the ones that were involved with this, and they were the investigative team that they sent in there. And somebody on their little Facebook page had said, why are you guys doing this? You're gonna exploit somebody and make a lot of money? And I posted on there, said, I think it's the house. It's not a person. This is it. But apparently this thing was widely panned on TV. I'll read this article here from the Daily Mail. The home where the most famous exorcism in U.S. history took place in 1949 entered the national spotlight again on Friday during an exorcism attempt that brought out trolls instead of evil spirits. During the Exorcism Live special on Destination America, medium chip coffee, Bishop James Long, we've had Bishop Long on the show, and others teamed up to rid the house where the subject of The Exorcist lived of evil spirits. Viewers of the show took to Twitter and began mocking the efforts of Coffee, Bishop Long, and the Tennessee Ray Chasers as they attempted to cleanse the home where Roland Doe once lived. Before the special began, the Tennessee Ray Chasers, who are known for their work on Ghost Asylum, had entered the house during the day to do a baseline sweep of the residence. Team members Chris, Doogie, Porter, Brandon, and Chasey Ray planned to enter the house at the bottom and work their way up before getting to the bedroom where Doe's exorcism took place. The team mentioned they had to be mindful to watch out for portals and vortexes because they were, it says vortexes here, because they were warned the house might contain trapdoors to
Anyone can write an article
to other dimensions and possibly even to hell. Well, actually, they've got it in quotes, so...
Oh, he might have
I think you're saying, Viewers were quick to mock the Ray Chasers for their outfits, accents, and failure to produce any real tangible results, besides feeling a heaviness inside the house and having difficulty breathing. One Twitter user wrote, "It's hard to breathe. Two overweight guys just finishing the flight of stairs." Another said, "Those tight feelings in your chest might be your shirt dude." Hashtag Exorcism Live. The special, which was hosted by Chris Jacobs, continued, and the team members went back into the house, but again found very little before unveiling a device called a Devil's Toy Box. A Devil's Toy Box is a 6-sided cube with mirrors inside that can theoretically attract a demon to enter into it by using human bait. After it enters, the demon should become trapped in the mirrors. Someone wrote, "What do you guys want to do tonight, eh? Let's piss off some ghosts and stick our buddy in a mirrored box of Satan." Another followed up, "I cannot believe they got the cast of Duck Dynasty to do this." As the show continued on with regular commercial interruptions, its viewers continued to mock it. The 2-hour program wrapped up with a seance followed by an exorcism attempt in Doe's bedroom by Coffee and Bishop Long that produced a lot of chatter but very few tangible results. Despite the lackluster ending, the show tweeted out, 66 years later, and finally the exorcism of this home is complete. The significance of the 66 on the night before Halloween resonated with at least one viewer who tweeted, "Getting Chinese takeout to eat while watching tonight, and my total was $6.66. No one else really seemed impressed or scared by the symbolism of the 66 or the show in general. Doe, the subject of William Peter Blatty's 1971 book, The Exorcist, and subsequent 1973 film, briefly lived in the Belmore, Missouri house, and he is still alive. Now 80 and living in the Washington, D.C. area, he guards his privacy and declined to participate in the special. Similarly, the people now living in the St. Louis home vacated for the production and would not discuss their own experiences there. So I'm going to ask you guys.
Sounds like what I want to be doing on my Halloween.
Yeah, it was the night before Halloween.
Okay.
That's what you'd want to do. It actually, people have compared this to. Some people compared it said it was so boring. They compared it to Al Capone's vaults, Geraldo Rivera's. Anybody remember that or know what that is? I remember it. I remember it.
It was on the Geraldo Rivera show.
Yeah, well, it was a special, and Geraldo Rivera had gone. He was like, top-notch reporter back in the day, and he went into Chicago, and they were going to open up Al Capone's secret vaults, right? And they didn't know, what could be stashed in there. Was it going to be gold? Was it going to be money?
Nothing.
Was it going to be the bodies of his murdered girlfriends or something? And they opened this thing up, right? And it's just garbage. There's just bottles and garbage. And and it was just one of the biggest like
Letdowns.
boondoggles letdowns of live television.
Cut to commercial.
Well-
Cut to commercial.
I will say, I would rather a 2-hour boring special on Ghosts than something where there's like a whole bunch of like hype and
Yeah.
something brushed me on the shoulder or this like.
Well, here
Zach Baggins.
here's one of the things.
Yeah.
Okay. First of all, you've got everybody says that people that one of the main criticisms of people that criticize these TV shows is that they're edited down, right? Mm-hmm. And they say, well, if you were actually going to watch it, you would probably be bored to tears because ghost hunting naturally is probably a very boring thing because not everything's going to happen. Not everything's going to be popping out at you. So when they edit it, they make it more interesting.
Right, but I feel like I can tell when there's extra stuff thrown in there for drama or you know, and that's what really drives me away from
Dude,
those.
did you just put your hands on me?
In 2008,
is anyone on floor 2? I heard something on floor 2. No one's on floor 2.
In 2008, the Ghost Hunters had a Halloween special. And they did this special where they were walking around. I don't remember. It was like an old prison or an old hospital or something. And apparently Grant, something was moving in the back of his shirt. And that got picked apart like ad infinitum on YouTube. People were saying that it was fake, and they were basically accused of faking evidence just to make things more interesting on the show. And I really think that probably actually did happen.
So I have a question for you guys.
They have been faking.
How often, even with your favorite shows, do you go instantly to social media and be like, "Hey, did you guys see that one part at 3:15?"
No.
But
they were kind of encouraging that on this show. They were saying like, if you see anything, make sure to tell them on Twitter. Let us know if you see something.
Yeah.
So that's they had thousands of
kinda
people on
came
Twitter
from,
waiting
yeah.
for something and getting bored and being
Right.
like,
Right, and then they start dogging it on them. They start dogging it.
That's
Trolls,
the mockery,
exactly.
yeah, okay.
Exactly. I mean, the title of this article actually is "Live TV Exorcism Fails to Call Up Any Evil Spirits, but it did bring out the Twitter trolls." So here's some of the tweets. All right, gang. I own some black clothes. I work out sometimes, and I have a southern drawl. Who wants to start a ghost team? I can't believe I could have spent the last 2 hours watching something scary, but wasted my time on Exorcism Live. Damn. Commercial break in the middle of the exorcism. Great. Commercial break. Damn it. Commercial break in the middle of the exorcism. Good job, guys. The devil clearly needs a new Subaru and some Kit Kats. Stop watching when people were actually tweet asking if their house can be haunted through the television. That was another thing too. People were saying like, "I'm having weird stuff happening, man, on the TV." So the big thing is,
Ask one of your cats.
Destination America. Apparently, I mean that's kind of where all this ghost stuff has kind of been migrating to. Mm-hmm. So I'm just wondering if like, do you think that there was consciously that they were just trying to just stir up just hype on this thing and just get ratings and
I think they probably went into it genuinely and just they didn't come across anything, and that's the risk you're going to take with that kind of live thing.
Exactly.
But my whole point is at least they didn't have a backup plan. We're like, well, if things don't start happening, we're going to flip these switches and
stuff's going to start talking.
And then, At least they released a boring. I mean, at least they let a boring show go on live and let it be genuine.
Sometimes
right.
it's boring.
Yeah, but people were criticizing that, and at the same time, you had people say, "Man, it's just not real enough. These shows."
Man,
well, that's the problem. That is the real side of it. Like we said, it's an unedited version. It's gonna come off as boring.
To me, it's boring watching anything like that, and I never do.
Yeah.
But if you're there first person, and you go into some old dilapidated ass house, like out in the country somewhere, like far away from any kind of lights or anything, all you have like is moonlight to get around. Well, they have flashlights and all that. Still, it's freaky, dude.
I mentioned that on when we were on the Leisure Hour last week, the week before last.
Yeah.
which by the way, we were on the leisure hour. That was really fun. But, you know, I mentioned that like the first season of Ghost Hunters, definitely the first season, and the second season, like I thought it was a really good show. I thought, you know, it was real honest, because sometimes they would go in and they would not find something.
Oh yeah, and I saw episodes where they debunked stuff.
Right, they would debunk stuff.
I enjoyed that just as much as
exactly. And but then at a certain point, they kind of started getting away from some of that, and they started, like, you could tell that they were auditioning people to be on the show. It wasn't like a whole like homegrown grassroots kind of thing.
Well, there's people who actually,
yeah, TV productions are such a big, elaborate thing
that we're a part of the team. They've blown the whistle on it. And,
yes.
Yeah, I don't watch it anymore. Like that.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that I
started fabricating shit.
I've gotten bored with this kind of show. I've gotten real bored with these kind of ghost hunts. Even if something is happening.
The theme is you should go off of yourselves with a recorder in a scary dark building.
Yeah,
if you really want to entertain.
And bring some interesting characters with you.
Like Luke.
Right, but if you go in by yourself, how do you know you're not just freaking yourself out?
We need to get Alyssa a mic.
I know, like there's just dead space on the air, like every time. We
don't know that. We might be able to hear it.
I offered her a mic. I was turned down.
Well, this I didn't know you guys were going to talk about this. I know about this stuff.
Well, we got. We're rapidly hurtling towards episode 100.
Yeah.
And tonight is episode 97.
Party.
And we have coming on Aage Nost. Yes, I learned how to pronounce it.
Aage Nost.
He's Norwegian.
I was just going to say, is he Norwegian?
Yeah,
because it sounds Norwegian.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. We're going to talk about spiritual science, among other things. So, without further ado, guys, we're going to go to the interview. We'll be right back on Conspirinormal.
Shazam.
Welcome back to Conspirinormal, guys. And we just had a very interesting discussion with a fourth party that I hope that Mike picked up about ghosts and Exorcism Live and Halloween and The Walking Dead and all that good stuff. But right now, we have on the line Mr. Aage Nost, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right. He wrote a book called Spiritual Science, and actually was kind of surprised. He emailed me to ask to come on the show, and I'm very happy to have him. Mr. Nost, Aage, thank you for coming on Conspirinormal.
Well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I just kind of wanted to go back, kind of like your background and who you are, the things that you've kind of like accomplished in your life. And I've also saw online that you built a UFO detector at the age of 12.
Yeah, that has become a big thing, actually. It really wasn't, but it was kind of a wild hair at the time, because I was always been very interested in UFOs or anything that is outside of the box in the paranormal. And I had a compass that I was playing a little bit with, so I realized that anytime I had magnets close to it or did some other things to it, then the compass needle turned. So I started to think about that, and if there was anything affecting from an anti-gravity system, I imagined that it would create ripples in the Earth magnetic field. If there was ripples in the Earth magnetic field, it would turn a compass needle, or at least wiggle it.
Okay.
So I built the whole thing around a compass, and I hooked it up to a battery and a bell and a breaker switch, and so I put the cord and the wires on really close to the compass needle. So if it turned even a little bit, it touched the wires, set off the electric circuit, and the bell went off. And by golly, that thing worked. 3 times that I remember that it went off, and I went outside and I saw something. And my mom, she told me that it went off several other times. So there is something there. And if people go to my Facebook page, I have a very detailed drawing of it there, so people can actually build their own. And you go to the hardware store, you can probably get the stuff for about $20 or less, and then you can build one.
What were some of the materials that you used?
I just used it's got to be a compass with a metal casing.
Okay.
Because it touched, the metal for electric conductivity. And then I ran the wire from the casing to the battery, from the battery to an electrical breaker switch, a small one, and then from there on through a bell or an alarm of some type, it can be used, and then back to the compass, where I split up the wire and put it on both sides of the compass needle. So it's pretty simple. It's very easily understood when you see it on the Facebook page.
And you were 12 years old when you did this?
Well, yeah, I might have been 13. I'm not sure, but okay. I think I was about 12.
Okay. And you're originally from Norway, right?
Yeah, I grew up in Norway. I grew up on a farm over there, and I went to agricultural college over there. That's where our neighbor was, actually. And then at the age of 25, I left Norway and went to the United States to go to flight school, and got all my certificates and ratings and became a flight instructor for a multi-engine instrument and, all the things that you can get. And I started working as a flight instructor. And then later on, me and a partner, we started a flight school that grew into an international air taxi. And that became an air carrier in Minneapolis up at the Anoka County Airport.
Okay. And how did you start getting into some of the ideas that you write about in your book?
Oh, I've always been interested in these things, but the majority, or a lot of the stuff that you will find in the book, the spiritual science, higher consciousness thinking, and how to access the universal consciousness. It came to me. I've been meditating for probably about 50 years or so. And when you sit in meditation, you get a lot of stuff that comes to you. But this was different. I had a download, so to speak. That's what I'm calling it. And that's where the universe was put into my mind. And it seemed to be that a lot of it was right there, a full understanding, both in concept and detail. And the next 3 days, I realized that, I can't lose this, so I got to write it down. And I sat there and wrote for 3 days, plus or minus things that I had to do. And after I was done writing, I looked at that and I said to myself, I can't write about this. People will think I'm nuts. And then I talked to another man that was there, and he was level-headed, well-educated man, and he said, no. He says, that makes perfect sense. He says, there's a book at the library, go get it. And in fact, that book, it's called, the one he was talking about is The Self-Aware Universe, the title of the book. And in there, he says, they talk exactly about what you are... what you have written here. So I went and did that, read it, and now I realized that I could write about it because I could back up what I had seen with quantum mechanics and science. So a lot of that is in the book, and of course quantum mechanics doesn't go as far enough, what I'm concerned. I go a little further in my statements about the details behind the equations, and so I leave the equations alone because, first of all, people have a hard time with that, and I don't understand them. So if I don't understand it, I shouldn't bother anybody else with it.
Gotcha. I was curious about one thing I wanted to ask you about was this radio station that you were involved with. I saw that there's actually a preview on YouTube from a documentary called Making Waves. And I guess this was kind of like a pirate radio station. I did myself doing podcasts. It kind of like really interested me about that you had this experience with this station. Like, what is it still around? I mean, are you still like kind of involved with it?
No, I'm not involved with that. That's long gone now. Okay. what we did, we did a lot of research, and we found out on the law that the FCC, they do not own the airways. In fact, they have no authority over the airways, and probably still do not, unless that it is authority given to them by someone that applies for a license. So we thought, there are several other radio stations in the country that do not have a license, but they operate perfectly well. So we went and did the same thing. And that became kind of a big thing because at the same time, we ran this radio station, mostly talk radio about, freedom-related issues and things like that. And then at the same time, I got on the ballot and ran for Congress. So that's why it became kind of a little bigger thing than what it was.
What party did you run? Like, what kind of platform did you run for Congress?
I was selected by the Libertarian Party to be on the ballot in 2000 to run for the House of Representatives in Washington.
Okay. I mean, do you consider yourself politically libertarian? This probably, it's closer than any of the other, but libertarians, they have their deficiencies also. So I guess, yeah, in a way I could say that, but I don't even know anymore. I don't, I don't know what to say about that, because voting, it's basically worthless because they control the back door to the voting system so that numbers can be changed. That's why in Arizona, 2 years ago, the one little town had 427% turnout for their voting in that town. Wow. Yeah, Luke's nodding his head when you were saying that voting is kind of useless.
I've always known it's worthless.
Yeah, so the numbers are padded in whichever direction that they wanted to go, and of course, ask George Bush about that. He all about it. Well, I mean, maybe in Florida, what that happened.
Right. Some people suspect Ohio as well. Yeah, in 2004. Yeah. So the radio station is no longer around now. Is it gone?
Yeah. We actually, boy, oh boy, we were firebombed. Somebody burned the place to the ground, just about.
Really?
And because we were, we were kind of a little more aggressive on local political issues than maybe we should have, and we gained very powerful enemies, and they took care of that. Even though that was rebuilt and we transmitted after the fire, so. But we realized that it really didn't make much difference, so we ended it.
Okay. Yeah, it seemed like a very interesting. I'd love to see the documentary. It seemed like a very interesting kind of story there. I guess there was a lot of were a few. I saw in the preview that some people. It seemed like there's a part where. It showed somebody stopped by the police and said, "Are you arresting me?" Did something happen to somebody that got arrested?
Not because of that. No, that was other thing. That was a traffic ticket later on that somebody got. That's just
okay. Yeah, I was just wondering whether it was that much to silence the people that were involved with the station or not.
Yeah, well, the FCC came and visited us, and we had a nice chat at the door, and I served them some papers right there, and they left, and we didn't hear anymore. So it worked okay.
Yeah. Well, let's get into a little bit about the book. I want to talk about, what do you mean by spiritual science? What does that term mean to you, and how does it differ from, I'd say, other forms of science?
Well, I always say that we have three forms of sciences. One of them is physical science, and we think we got this one figured out. We have an airplane that travels 3 to about 5, 6 times the speed of sound, and we have a clock that winds itself. And even more than that, we got a used car sitting on the moon that they used in 1969 to get astronauts getting around. So, yeah, physical science we think we know how to do well. And then there is mental science. Mental science, that is things like photographic memory. We know it exists because there are some that has it. In fact, 20-some years ago, I used to teach it. But and then there is eidetic memory, and there is mind techniques and things like that. It's mental science. But then we have spiritual science. I call it spiritual science. It overlaps very closely with quantum physics. Okay. Because what I think happens to the theoretical physicists when they sit and stare at equations, when they on the blackboard, they don't see the written equations. They see concepts. And when they sit there and stare at those equations looking for answers, then the universal consciousness open up and give them answers. That's what I call, outside of the physical, I call it a spiritual science. And I'm not the only one that's calling it that. There's others, too, that using that term. And I think it is becoming more and more prevalent as time go on because we get a better understanding of the extra-physical realities out there.
Okay.
I think we're growing into it. And there's a lot of things that the theoretical physicists are discovering, but it is not in the mainstream science, and they don't dare talk about it yet, because if it's too controversial, first of all, they can lose their credibility, and they can lose the tenure with the universities they're working, and it can hurt them. So they got to be a little careful, make small steps forward in the right direction, and they're way behind when it comes to that.
What would be a good example of something like that they would be reticent to talk about?
Well, what about this concept that we are calling this is a universe we live in, right?
Right.
Well, yeah, it is, but we're not the only universe out there. A few years back here, then Stephen Hawking, he came from Cambridge University in England. He came and he says, well, I think we can prove on the blackboard now that we have at least, I think he said 7 to 10 different universes. Okay. Before that, they said, absolutely not. This is it, boy. This is the only universe there is because that's all we can see. Well, now they're opening up to more universes. And after a while, they're going to open up to more. They're going to open up to the fact that there are thousands and thousands of them. Every time that we start creating new decisions that goes in a different direction, we create a different timeline that also creates a different reality that turns into a universal existence for us as we move forward. Could that make sense?
That does make sense. That is one thing in quantum physics, that each choice that we make could potentially spawn off a different universe. Is there a way to access these different universes?
Yes, it is. Absolutely, it is. And that is done for the beginners. That is done through meditation. So you've got to learn how to shut down the clutter in your mind that blocks the information from that universal consciousness from traveling through the superconscious mind into the subconscious mind up to the conscious mind and being displayed in conscious understanding. As long as we, most of our minds, even doing trivial things during the day, our mind is going 90 miles an hour and we have all these private conversations in our head. Some of them are good and some of them are not so good.
Right.
But if we get rid of that, if we empty the conscious mind out, now there is a path from the subconscious all the way up to the conscious mind where it can display itself. 20-some years ago, I used to teach a mind development course that is now called ZOX Pro, ZOXPRO. And what we taught there is to actually assimilate information out of a book that they read of some 50 to 100,000 words per minute with 95% retention. And we taught the principles of photographic memory. And the thing is that stuff works. But science don't want that. They're scared of it. School system don't want to touch it, because if you get kids at the age of 14 having 2 PhDs, what in the world do you need teachers for?
So you're saying somebody could just pick up a book and just read it in the course of like a minute?
Well, it's going to take a little more than that, probably 3 or 4 minutes, because you got to turn pages. So as fast as you can turn the pages, if you are able to see the whole pages right and left, then you slow down your mind and you empty your conscious mind out. So now your mind takes a mental picture of those 2 pages and stick it directly through the conscious into the subconscious mind and store it in long-term memory right away.
Okay.
So you don't focus on the pages, and now it's in long-term memory. So later on, when you want to retrieve some of it, you use triggers, and you go to long-term memory to retrieve it from there to bring it up to conscious understanding.
It's kind of like your brain is like a file system.
Absolutely. Okay. It really is a file system. You know, the computers are built on the same system as the brain was designed.
You've had students successfully do this?
I'm sorry, say again?
You've had students successfully do this?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Just everybody could do that. Well, everybody. First of all, they have to understand the language. And I had kids coming in that was so dyslexic. One particular kid coming in, he was so dyslexic that he couldn't. We do a reading test first. We have them read for 5 minutes and we count the words. In 5 minutes, he was about half of a paragraph, about 4 or 5 lines down the first page, and he could not remember what he had read. 1 week later, he was reading with the rest of them. There were no difference. He was scoring in the 80s and the 90s on the test that we gave him on the material that he had gone through. So this stuff works. It's just that it is not recognized in the major system because it interferes with the cash flow. Schools are pretty much indoctrination institutions where there is a jobs program. They want to make sure that nothing interferes with the jobs of the teachers. This would.
Right.
Yeah, I'd say so.
And not to mention the obvious effort to just kind of dumb down the population. You know, you don't want everybody being on the same level in a capitalistic society, like, you know, having the same level of intelligence and being a threat to those who you know, the small percentage that actually control big business and everything.
Yeah, you got it. It's all about the money.
That's what it usually comes down to, isn't it? Have you ever accessed one of these parallel universes? Have you ever met like the parallel universe version of yourself?
In that download that I had, I saw a lot of it.
Okay.
And there is one that is next to us right now, where we are, and it is basically empty, except for it looks like the terrain in the wilderness with trees and grass and stuff like that, but there are no people. I got to think about that afterwards. Maybe this is something that is prepared for us. Once we start getting to a higher level of consciousness where we leave this place where we are at, we could walk into that one. That's very possible. Why? The surface of that particular Earth that is parallel to us there is the surface is about 5,000 feet above us right now. So it's slightly bigger than this Earth is. But there are many different timelines going into different corners of the universe. So, I mean, many different timelines. One timeline ended in, well, it didn't end totally, but Earth was hit by an asteroid in 1975, and for the next years it destroyed all life. These things are out there in the parallel timelines.
And you've seen this universe, like that universe where the Earth was destroyed by an asteroid.
It was depicted in that download, yeah.
Huh. Very interesting. Very interesting. But like you yourself, have you encountered or seen yourself, but in like different situations than what you would be normally in?
When it comes to the future, there is a way you can go and have a look at it. And in the back of the book, in the last chapter, I explain how to do that. There is, I had the mind, to answer that one, let me just back up a little bit, and then I'll answer that question for you.
Right.
Because when it comes to the mind, really very few people understand what the mind is. Science basically is not even sure we have one. They know we got a brain, and they think the brain might be creating everything that is happening. Well, that's partially true, but the mind creates what's in the brain. Let's put it this way. Let me set the stage for you, sir. I'm going to ask you a question.
Okay.
Science has found that matter and energy cannot be created from nothing, right?
That's true.
Yeah. Then again, we have some of the sharpest people on the planet, like Stephen Hawking out of Cambridge University in England and most other theoretical physicists. They are now agreeing that their equations on the blackboard using quantum mechanics prove this universe we are living in was created from nothing. Now, if this whole
Big Bang, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, if the whole universe was created from nothing and you are in this universe created from nothing, what are you?
Well, I mean, it's kind of unsettling. I don't really want to think of myself as nothing, but I guess I'd hope I'd be something.
Yeah, I paused on purpose there because I wanted people to think. You see, the thing is that physically there is nothing because there's only one thing that can create that, and that is thought. Mental projection of something that appears real. The mind creates this forward videographic or holographic existence around you. And that's why there is no limitation to what the mind can create if you understand what it is and know how to work with it and how to work it. You can actually create miracles, what people call miracles, from basically nothing. But there is something out there because, hey, if you're cutting tomatoes, you cut yourself, it stings, doesn't it? So
Right.
There is something. This is the hologram, and there are several things out there explaining the holographic universe. Quantum mechanics talk about it, and they prove it in the equations. And it's just that this old dogma of belief come up from ages past and specifically hardened through religion is that this physical universe is the only thing physical there is, and then you go on to a spiritual life and you go to heaven or the other place downstairs, and that's all there is. No, that's not true. There is more to it than that.
Okay.
So what our mind are creating in the past, present, and future outside of the physical reality, there is no such thing as time. It is all happening right now. It is sitting there in this soup of creation as potentials for existence and creation. So since there is no time there is no distance between the past and the present and the future. It is all in that soup. So what if we think of something with strong emotion, love, and intention, that is not just thoughts. Those are energy patterns that imprint themselves on the future and the present, and it can imprint itself on the past because there is no distance between the past and the future.
It's only the way that we perceive it.
Yeah, we create it in our mind because our mind creates everything. So we create the past, present, and the future. So now, if we go and say visualize something in the future that we really want more than anything else, we have now visualized this. Let's say we visualize it with strong pictures and colorful images. We do it with intentions that this is going to happen and I'm going to make it happen. And then you pour love into it. Love is the most powerful force in the universe because that is all there is. And now you have in the future that thing you want. You have created an image of it. You have given it a low form of life. You have given it a location. If you associate that thing with a time-coded event, you have even created a timeline to a completion of it. So every time you go back, do this every day, go back to it, and you solidify it by thinking about it and visualizing again in detail and concept and pictures and so on. Now you lay down attractor strings to that thing in the future. So it gets more solid, locked into your timeline. And then, of course, you go out and do everything you can in your physical arena to make sure that this can happen in the future. Prepare for it. And you do this day after day after day. Every day you got to do it. And when that time, let's say a year from now in the future, closes in on you, you have prepared, done what you can to make it happen. The universe does its part. And when that day comes, let's say it's a Christmas party or you make an announcement that you have accomplished this or whatever, then these two timed locations are joining into one, and you walk into the future event you have created in your mind.
So
this is what bears do.
So if I was to say that, well, I want to get a better job, and I visualize that.
Yeah.
And eventually I get to the point where I've made the effort to do that. But let's say I get to that job that I want, and then all of a sudden I don't get that job, or maybe some like random chance happens. Is there room for that kind of randomness to occur, or will I just get that job because my intent is so on that one thing?
It could happen because within this concept of timelines and time and future events, there is a wild card.
Yeah.
And that is previous arrangements that you have made with the universe or yourself, prepared for yourself while or before you entered physical reality. Let's say that if somebody have a specific event that they are supposed to learn from.
Yeah.
You don't know what it is yet. But you can see something happening that this would be wonderful if I had done, but then you start doubting it. And you, outside of the physical arena, in that spiritual realm or in the quantum field, you start doubting it and you create a different, alternate future. Lay down, let's say that you think in a different way for a different reason, create a different thing. Now you can create a different timeline to that one, so you bypass the first one that you may have wanted. So there are some previous arrangements that it's very difficult to get around, and those can, let's say somebody end up with cancer.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that nobody wants, but there may have been an arrangement before or outside of the physical arena where your consciousness made, soul some people would call it, made the arrangement. They wanted the experience of having it. Because outside there's no such thing as good experiences and bad experiences. They are just experiences.
See, that's one of the things that and I'll be honest with you here. I have a problem with some of that philosophy, because it's hard to think of that we would want horrible, bad things to happen to us, and that we would, as a soul, make that occur somehow. And I'm not necessarily talking about life lessons, because I do believe that there are some of those that maybe we go through those for a reason, or God makes that happen, or we set that up. But like someone gets cancer and dies, or someone is killed in war, or somebody's killed randomly, or what I would receive as randomly. It's kind of hard to get your head around that. But
that's very hard. That's hard to get our heads around because it is so ingrown in us
Right.
that this physical reality is really all that we have. And what it comes down to is that nothing really dies. Your consciousness does not die. It moves on into a different reality, and
I
your
would
body
agree, yeah.
changes form. It doesn't get obliterated. It changes forms. It goes back to something different, and then it comes back again if you were to take on a new body. And
Recycle.
see, the mind is everything.
Right, you're saying recycled, Luke.
Recycled.
Yeah. No, see, when the mind creates the body, the perception of the body is all there is. There's nothing physical. And quantum mechanics is with me on this one. There is nothing physical except for the perception of it. And what that comes down to is that whatever we have in our mind, whatever we create in our mind is what we will have in our life. People that are negative thinkers all the time, they very rarely create positive things in their life. We know that. And people that do things to themselves, that drink coffee and booze and, whatever, they will probably end up dying early from some type of disease because they have mistreated themselves.
Yeah,
Of course.
we do make our choices there, don't we?
And of course, what we know now is that aging even is a disease and it can be cured. Medical science says so.
Yeah, this is an interesting aspect of your work that I've heard you speak about in some other interviews. Like, what is? Are we looking at a point where we're going to reverse the aging process?
Yeah, and in fact, in 2009, 3 doctors got the Nobel Prize for discovering an enzyme that reverses the aging process. And if you want to do some research on this, you can go to the Nobel Committee over in Oslo, Norway, and go to 2009, scroll down until you get to medical submissions, and look at the papers. And somewhere in those papers, there's several of them, somebody sent it to me before I went and read it, but somewhere in there it says one of the doctors made the comment that by taking or having enough of this enzyme in the body, there would really never be any reason for anybody dying from old age anymore.
Okay.
Now, when I read that, my light bulb went off. It told me, get the enzyme. And, of course, I'm doing that now.
So you're taking this?
I am doing what it takes, yeah, because I also found there is capacity for old age. In the mid-1950s, there was a Chinese university professor that came to New York and on an exchange program. Yeah. And evening he went out with colleagues and had dinner, and he got food poisoning and died. Well, that's a shame, but they started to go through his paperwork at the morgue, and they said, wait a minute, this isn't right. According to his passport, he's 154 years old. And they called the ambassador and asked him, how can that be? And the ambassador told them, well, first, he did not believe he could die. And then later on, it also came out that he didn't eat like normal people. He only ate Chinese herbs and berries. That's all he used to eat for food. And I found out what he ate. So it is kind of unique, actually. If you want to know, I'll tell you.
Yeah, absolutely. Please.
Yeah. He ate the herbs of, there's a Chinese herb called ling shi. And then goji berries.
I'm familiar with goji berries, yeah.
Yeah, I used to eat them a lot. And then wild ginseng.
Okay.
And then he ate He Shou Wu. Wu with W-U. And he also ate Gotu Cola. And then there is one that he ate, that's astragalus. And that is probably the more important one, astragalus. And then there's an herb that is called, that's all that was listed for him. But if it was me, I would add a few things to it. I would also take this Chinese herb, they call it the immortality herb. And I had it laying here. I laid that one out for you, and now I can't find it. Well, okay, I'll come up with it.
That sounds like an important one.
I just found out about this one. See, a friend of mine over in Germany, he sent me Klaus over there. He told me about it.
Luke, what do you think about that?
What he's saying right now, it does resonate pretty well with me because, I find myself that the biggest loss of energy that I have every day is after meals. And it doesn't matter because I started cooking everything that I eat in my kitchen. Like I stopped eating as much fast food, but still, yet I try to buy the healthiest things within, monetary reason, but still I feel like drained of energy after every meal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can understand that because all your blood goes to the stomach to digest the food, so it leaves the body. And I tell you, I've done another thing that also I read some medical research out of Germany that they said that everybody that ate one bowl of oatmeal every day of their life lived on the average of 11 years longer than people that didn't. And of course, I've done that too. So since I was probably about 4 inches tall, since I remember.
Yeah.
You hear these stories about Chinese people, monasteries, to do with monasteries and stuff like that lived 200 plus years sometimes. It's as far back as like ancient China. Some of this. Yeah. So some of the reading that we have from back then talks about people living 2 and even as far as like 300 years. And it's believable. It's totally believable because if you decrease the amount of punishment that you're doing to your body and your lifestyle, and if you continue that throughout your, it's very believable that you could make it to 200 years old.
Exactly, and you must have found out some of the same things I did because I found a man in China that was 256 years old. He was a Chinese herbalist and some martial art teacher, and his name was Li Xing Yan. And I seem to remember he had 23 wives and over 200 grandchildren over his life. And the official Chinese birth record saw he was born in 1677. Wow. And but he died in an accident in the early 1930s. And that was written up in New York Times at the time, and they also published some of these government records, and they made a big thing. One of them was a congratulations from the emperor on his 150th birthday, and from a different emperor at his 200th birthday.
And again, he didn't die of old age anyway.
Yeah. So it is real. It does happen, but gosh, in the Western world, this don't happen. So they just poo-poo. They don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, I think the most the on record for the Western world is probably like 120 years old, maybe even 130. I know some people in Georgia, the former Soviet Republic, that they can live. Those people can live around to like 130, 140 years old on record. Some of them.
Yeah, and National Geographic went into South America in the 1930s and found a tribe down there where the average age in that village was 130 years old.
And
the of adults.
We seem to have this misconception about those scattered tribes too. we seem to have the notion that they don't last that long, that they only make it to about 25, 30 years old most of the time, or maybe 40. Yeah, I was exaggerating a little there.
And they're quote unquote backwards, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they. I wonder which one of them, either them or us, are backwards. They were. We don't.
I wanted to ask you about. This is right up Luke's alley here. I wanted to ask you about fluoride, about the prevalence of fluoride in our water and how that could be affecting us.
Well, fluoride is one of the most toxic substances on Earth, and the EPA do not let. Well, it's a byproduct of the aluminum industry and a couple of other industries that you get that. But it's so toxic that the EPA doesn't let them dispose anywhere unless it is enclosed in glass or concrete. In the past, I flew for a living for 23 years, and there were times when we had a barrel of fluoride flown to different places for the cities to put in the water. And when those small barrels came, they were yellow with black stripes on it and skulls and bones on four sides of it. And it says on there, if you touch it with bare hands, wash your hands thoroughly with soap and water and call poison control.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is just. And this stuff is so toxic that they won't let them dispose of it anywhere, but they got to get rid of it somehow, so they put it in your water.
You can look at the MDS data sheet, and right there it will tell you how toxic it is. The toxicity level is pretty high.
I like the fact that when you go to buy a water filtration system, it brags that it doesn't remove fluoride. That still boggles my mind. Like people just...
And it's coming now. In fact, they are now starting to lift fluoride as a neurotoxin, actually, over in Europe. And there's a lot of stuff that is changing in the attitude towards the way we treat the environment.
It's pretty disturbing once you start doing some research into it. What's that? The National Fluoride Research has their own website with a lot of controlled tests that they've done that just for me it's proof that it does absolutely nothing for your teeth, which is the excuse here for putting it into our water supply.
Yeah, because that particular survey they are quoting saying that, oh yeah, it's good for your teeth because the testing showed that. Well, yeah, but what you need to do is to go back and find out who financed the survey or the testing. Mm-hmm. It was a chemical company that produced fluoride.
Right.
Yeah. And even if you do get your hands on a water filter that doesn't claim that it leaves the fluoride, still the fluoride molecules are so small that it slips through the filter most of the time. You know, that worries me. Like I use a couple of different filters. I have one on the sink and I have the pitcher too. So I run it through the sink filter and the pitcher. But I still am doubtful that it's removing like every bit of fluoride and chlorine.
Yeah, they are so small that I doubt that it is anything except you have to distill the water in order to get rid of it.
Right.
You know, I mentioned this Chinese immortality herb.
Yeah.
I found my little Post-it note here, but I wrote it on. Here it is, and let me tell you what it is. And that is one thing that I would add to the list of the other things that people will take. And that is Jagulan herb, or Jagulan tea. It works best as a tea, I'll be told. I'll spell it for you. That's JIAOGULAN.
Jagulan tea.
Yeah, it's a strange name, but that's what it is. And I get most of my stuff from a place, a Piping Rock is the name of the herbal company I get my stuff from, pipingrock.com. And Didn't mean to advertise for them, but I'm sure they
It's all
don't
right.
mind.
It's no problem. I'm sure they don't. I'll ask you about, since we were on the subject of fluoride, what is the role of the pituitary gland? How can we use that to access some of the realms that you're speaking of? And the reason I ask that is we've talked a lot about ayahuasca on this show, and how that and DMT and how that affects, or how that actually is produced by the pituitary gland.
Yeah. Yeah, the pituitary gland is the gateway to the universe. And it appears, the way I had understood it, as all communication with the universe and the quantum fields come through there. And I know there are some people that even call it the God Center. So there's something in there that opens up the door for us to communicate with other worlds or other dimensions.
Aren't the pituitary gland and the pineal gland two different parts of the brain?
Yeah. But in the center of the brain, one is down below the other one, I guess, right in front of the lower hypophysis, in the back of the kind of brain there. But the calcification of both those two glands are coming, a lot of it, from the regular calcium that is getting through, and also the fluoride. Fluoride will destroy the capabilities of the pituitary gland, and it seems like it is encouraged, because if people are just earthbound and don't think about anything higher, then they're easier to control, because they're controlled more so by fear. Once you have a little more access to spiritual knowledge, then you could start thinking on your own a little more, and you may not be as easy controlled. So, it's Hitler in the concentration camps over in Germany, he used fluoride to feed the prisoners, because they got docile and they didn't have so many protests and disagreements.
That is true. They popped it into the water supply in the concentration camps. Yeah, that is true. I wanted to ask. Let's turn the thing.
Well, one sec before you do that.
Okay, all right, no problem.
I've been seeing these articles about turmeric being able to decalcify the pineal gland. What do you think about that?
I don't know about turmeric and that particular need for it. I know it's probably one of the strongest cancer fighters on earth. That's the reason that there's very little cancer in India, because they eat a lot of the turmeric. So I don't know about how it works it very likely could be. I just don't know anything about that for the pituitary or the pineal gland.
That's interesting. In India, there's a lower rate of cancer. Have they linked it to? They've linked it to that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I wanted to let's move into something really controversial. Let's move into religion. This is always fun. You talk about in the book about kind of like the nature of Jesus and kind of like the origins of mankind. And let's kind of go into some of that you talk about there in the book.
Okay, you asked.
Totally okay.
We got to think about when we talk about religion, that according to the UN, there's about 3,000 different religions on Earth.
Yeah.
Well, we know that 2,999 of them, they're all wrong. There's only yours that is right. We know that. With tongue-in-cheek here.
Gotcha.
Let's say religion. Let's take an example, like the Catholic Church. When I ask people who wrote the Bible, and they say, well, the apostles did. Well, they didn't. Religion is it's run as a government, has the same facets of it: demand for financial support, demand total obedience, demand to believe the doctrine, and all the things that is a requirement for government is present in religions.
Right.
So we should draw the parallel. But the Christian religion, that's probably the one I'm more familiar with because I've studied it more than others. And it was created in 325 back in Constantinople, Turkey, where actually Nicaea back then. And the reason they did that, the emperor Constantine, he had fires, he had wars, and he had problems all around the Roman Empire. And he looked at the Jews, and he saw how united they were in their faith and how they supported each other. They never had infighting much. And he wanted that for the Roman Empire. So he got about 224 different scholars and learned people of the time, and he told them, go to Nicaea and you will create a religion that will join together and unify the Roman Empire, and do not come back until you have done so. They spent several years. They went through 9,000 scrolls and papers, papyrus actually, or tablets and old writings. And they took what they wanted and discarded what they didn't want, burned the original, rewrote it, and called the rewrites the original. And that was later on, they decided that this is what we're going to teach, and they couldn't really agree on it. So until about 60 years later at the Council of Hippo, that's when they decided that this is going to be the final draft of what we are called the book, and later on became the Bible. And guess what? When it come to Jesus, they couldn't agree on that either, so they had a vote. They voted whether they should give him deity status or not. And well in their mind was what the Roman emperor had told them, do not come back until you have done so. There were 3 people that wrote in the records from the meetings over there. They said that we haven't seen anything in these writings that he's any different than a regular man. And of course, they were immediately grabbed and they were transported to the very northern part of the Roman Empire and exiled.
Wasn't
now?
Oh, sorry. Go on.
Yeah, what I was going to say about religion further is that it takes on a life of its own, just like governments does. And you start taking more and more and more and more from the people until there is nothing left. And then the people rise up and they shrug off the oppressors, and then they start over again. That's how empires fall. And in 475 or something like that AD, then the Roman Empire just ceased to exist. And the Roman Empire, as a large one, they are still actually there. Guess where the Roman Empire is now? It is at the Vatican.
Yeah, a lot of right.
0.17 square mile of land is the only thing left of the Roman Empire, and that's where the Vatican is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so they kind of took a lot of the same structures of the Roman Empire, just kind of translated it into the Roman Catholic Church.
Yeah, they did. And the thing about it is Yahshua B'Falachma, which is Jesus' Hebrew name, he was a hardcore Jew. I mean, not Jew, but he was in the Jewish faith, very much so. But the thing is that he was not a Christian. I wonder how that change came about. It is
well,
all
I mean,
in your
he
own
was generally considered a Jew. Yeah, I mean that's true.
Yeah, and the thing is that if you go back even further, the word God, that dates back to the Babylonians. The word God in the old Sumerian language meant great leader. And the word angel, that was messenger. And So then when it says in the Bible that God sent an angel to speak to so-and-so, that wasn't necessarily a lie, but it was just that they used a different language, just like law does. Law, the words look the same, but they mean different things. In the religion, the words look the same, but they mean different things. So it meant that the great leader sent a messenger to talk to so-and-so.
Yeah.
And the word God was given a meaning in the later years that it was never meant to have.
I wanted to ask. Go.
Yeah?
I wanted to ask you about something that intrigued me. A statement that you make in the book about the books of Moses, and generally believe that that's the first 4 books or first 5 books of the Bible. But you say that there's other books of Moses, and you've actually seen at least one of these books.
I have. See, Moses wrote 12 books.
Okay.
I have 10 of them. Okay. You can buy them. They're not easy to find, but you can get your hands on them. There is one place where I bought probably most of them. I stumbled across the 7th book, but I think I got most of them. It's a place, healthresearch.com, I think, or Health Research is the name of the place. It's a bookstore out in California, Okamole Hill, it used to be. And you can get, I think, all 10 books there. Now, the 11th book of Moses, you can't find anywhere. I've tried. And the 12th, nobody knows if it even exists, except there is supposed to be one at the Vatican, and they won't let you see it.
What is in some of these books?
Oh, there is. Moses was he was a magician. He had magician back then meant something different than it means today. Today it means one that is good with his hands, with card tricks and things like that. Back then, it was the power of the mind. And he was well educated. He had a very strong mind, and he could do some of these things by creating something called eidetic memory for one thing, and he could create things out of the mind and put it into the physical existence, bypass the regular physical creation process.
All right.
It appears that he was well advanced in the psychic arena. So he had some access to some of the Akashic records, possibly because the Akashic records mostly, we think of it as the past, but they're also there for the future.
This is the same that like Edgar Cayce wrote about, the Akashic records.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So there is, the mystery schools in Egypt, they taught a lot of things. And they got kids that came there at the age of, things from 3 to 5 years old, but they stayed there for 25, 30 years. And they taught them the power of the mind. They taught them about medicine, nutrition, salts, and they became the leader of their groups or their village or wherever they went afterwards. And this old knowledge that it was there, but it was not for the common man to have.
What do you make of modern mystery schools? Do you have any experience in dealing with anything like that?
I have never really looked into it. I'm wondering how, there is one mystery school, and that's the Masons, Masons, they have the Rosicrucians, they also have a form of a mystery school, and they teach some of the old teachings. And they've come across a lot of the truth, but they seem to be directing it in a way where they would benefit themselves and control others, and mostly for gains of themselves. So I don't particularly. I've been invited, I think, 2 or 3 times to join the Masons, and I never did because I knew a little bit about what they do, so just never done.
I was going to ask you about that, about secret societies and how some of the material that you cite in the book, and then also some of the concepts that you talk about, could be similar to some of the things that they talk about, and some of this like secret knowledge that they say that they have. Do you believe that there's such a thing as like, well, like everybody talks about the Illuminati, this kind of elite that controls the world, controls the planet?
Oh yeah, absolutely, because they admit it themselves.
Yeah.
So yeah, they do. They admit that that was created in 1776, same year as the U.S. I mean the Declaration of Independence. So of course the Illuminati was created over in Europe. So yeah, they admit that, and it's there, and it's grown to a global control mechanism now, but that's actually it seems like it's faltering a little bit lately. There's some people power getting in the middle of their soup.
Yeah, I would agree with that for sure. It seems like things have kind of fallen apart in a way in that respect for them. So you would definitely see them as probably like, I'd say, like the darker side of the coin. In other words, like or lack of a better term, black magic as opposed to white magic.
I'm not so sure black magic and white magic will apply to that, because think of it this way. Illuminati, that comes from illumination.
Right.
Illumination comes from light. And that dates back to the teachings that actually came out of Atlantis with they speak about that in the Emerald Tablet, and they speak, I've seen some other writings on it that speaks of the light. Love is light. God is love. So their God is actually love. But they are reversing the equation. So they're corrupting it, so to speak. So they are using it for their gain of control, where that was never meant to be.
Right. How do you interpret this story of the Garden of Eden? The serpent comes to Adam and Eve and said, when you eat the fruit of the tree of knowledge, you will be like gods. How do you interpret that story?
Well, I'd rather not interpret it. I'd rather read it as the written records of that time speak of it.
Gotcha.
Because Sumerian tablets, they talk about the creation. And that was written thousands of years before the Bible was even thought of. And in the Sumerian tablets, it is written that there were these people that came from another world, from another planet, that has an elliptical orbit around Sol, which is our sun. And every 3,660 years, it comes into the inner planets between the fourth and the fifth planet, where the asteroid belt is. And the people living on this planet, they came to Earth and they splashed down in the Arabian Sea. They swam to shore. And it took them 6 days to build an encampment where they were going to live. And the leader of them, which was NT, was the guy's name, he said that he looked at it and he saw it was good, and he was going to rest on the seventh day. And he's using the exact same language that shows up in the Bible. And there are too many similarities. It's obvious that what is in the Bible is a direct quote of some of the things that is written up in the Sumerian tablets. Of course, the Bible is credited to someone else. But also in the Sumerian tablets, they talk about these people that came from the stars. They came here to dig for gold because they needed gold for their atmosphere, to put it in the upper atmosphere as a fine atomic dust to prevent oxygen from escaping into space. It's explained in the tablets. And they was digging for a very long time, tunnels and mining operations in Africa, all over southern Africa and the Arabian Peninsula. And at one time, the workers that came from that other planet, they revolted. And they didn't want to do this dirty work anymore. So Enki says, we will create a primitive worker that will only work and ask no questions. So they took there was a creature that was already there, and they took genetic material from that creature, and they gave of their own substance. And what they're saying is that they took the two twisted ropes of life. Obviously, that sounds like the double helix. And some of the substance of the creature they started with was removed. And then them, of course, the gods, they gave of their own substance, but they withheld some qualities like long life, knowing the other's mind, and several other things. These people that came from the stars here, they are in the Sumerian King's List. There's a record of them being around for hundreds of thousands of years, because one of them, he splashed down 399,000 years ago, according to the King's List, in the Arabian Sea. And the same man was still around about 12,000 years ago when Noah built the boat, and everybody in the Middle East got wet. So
this is kind of like the Zechariah Sitchin story, right? I mean, this is what he talks about.
Yeah, and that comes right out of the Sumerian tablets. And I've looked at some of them. I read some of Zechariah Sitchin stuff, a couple of his books. And but I also went to the museum in London and read some of their stuff, and it's the same thing, that they talk about this is the way it was. Because these people, they lived on this planet called Nibiru. And they are coming in a very elliptical orbit. In 1984, I have 3 newspaper articles from the Chicago Tribune and 2 other newspapers, one from I think it's the San Francisco Chronicle, and one from the East Coast, where there was one day that there was an article saying that there is a large object at the end of the solar system, and the scientists don't know what it is. It is bigger than any planets out there. And they write a little bit about it. They can't figure out what it was, and then everything went quiet. It was never mentioned again. And of course now, you're talking about, you see it even on YouTube, which may not be quite true, but it's still, that everybody's talking about this Nibiru coming back in.
Yeah, there are a lot of people talking about it. That's very true.
And it is coming. It is coming. It isn't just one planet. This hasn't really hit the media or been published yet, but there is actually a brown dwarf, kind of like a sun, a burned out sun that has some 8 to 10 planets rotating around it. And all that little solar system is coming back in through ours. And whenever it does, it creates havoc. Asking Noah, he knows all about it. So these types of things happen, even though the last couple of times that they came through, nothing big happened.
When's the next time it's supposed to come through?
Well, you hear people say, it's going to be in April next year, March next year. No, it's not. I ran the numbers on it, and I'm figuring it's going to be around another 400 years before it gets in here.
Wow. So none of us will have anything to worry about, I guess, huh?
Unless we eat our herbs and berries.
Unless you plan to live that long.
Oh, that's true. A good point. Yeah, good point. Good point. Thank you, Rob.
Why not? It's the disease, right?
I won't be around that long.
Yeah. I wanted to ask real quick about the Druze. This was an interesting, the Druze religion. You cover that a little bit in the book as well.
Yeah, the Druids, they've been around a long time. A very long time. And
there's not very many of them left, I think. And I think also they're in Syria, I believe, right?
Yeah, that could be. I'm thinking more of the Druids in Western England and Ireland, you know.
Oh, I meant like the Druze. D-R-U-Z.
The Druze?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Druze. Oh, yeah. Well, there is small communities of Druze even in the United States. And they claim to be the direct lineage of reincarnate souls from Atlantis. And they are the descendant of the teachers of light over there, and they stay to themselves. They do not take in converts. You have to be born into a family that is a Druze. Otherwise, you really don't have a way to join them. Because they work it by, you have to be a reincarnate in order to be one of them. But they don't talk about the religion, they don't advertise, they don't, you hardly ever hear about them. Casey Kasem was one of them. You know, that radio star from the 50s and the 60s?
Oh, yeah, really? Wow.
Yeah, he was one of them, and nobody knew it. And there is a few people around the country that are of that lineage, and but most of them are, like you said, is in the Middle East. There's a small enclave in Israel, and then in Syria there is supposed to be some in Lebanon, and they're around. But altogether, they claim that they think there might be 500,000 people altogether that are the Druze. That's about it.
Yeah, it seems like interesting, like some of these cultures that exist and have very small communities that still have some of these interesting beliefs like that. I found that really fascinating. Let's talk about time travel in the time that we have left.
What was that?
Oh, time travel.
Oh,
I want to know how we can travel through time. And now, when you say time travel, you mean, I guess, more mental time travel than physical time travel.
Well, it could be both. If we understand what we are, we are nothing except for a mental projection into the physical reality, exactly like a hologram would be. All we have to go back to the computer that controls the hologram and change the programming to show a different projection of what is in the field. So, time travel is very hard to understand if we think that we are really something. We are physical matter here that, we are, but it is a hologram. Holograms can be changed by the computer running the show, and that universal consciousness is that computer that can run the show in our physical existence. Let's convert that to time travel. The past, present, and future is sitting in this super creation out of the physical reality. It is all there in the now, in the present. There is no distance between the past and the future. We can access it by going there in our mind, accessing it, and we can see the past and the future. But we have to also remember, by doing that, I've been known to make predictions about some things in the future, and some of it don't happen. And that comes from the fact that timelines can screw us up, because if we are... Let me back up a little bit. In 2003, BBC television came over to the United States and did a TV documentary on time travel. They interviewed Michio Kaku and Green and several other theoretical physicists and myself.
Okay.
And this was shown in front of 1 billion people around the world, and it got some notoriety. But some of the things I had seen that I talked about on this particular TV documentary didn't happen. Because at the time this video was made, I was hosting and producing 2 TV shows, and I was into the government corruption, and I was all in there trying to expose what the government was doing, and all this garbage and really negative stuff was on my mind. So that is what I projected into the future. Had I not changed my mind and changed and altered by creating a new timeline for myself, that probably would have happened, and that would have been bad news. And I'm in a timeline now where that did not happen because I changed my mind on what I saw in the future. I wanted to see different things. And evidently, what I had seen in the other timeline didn't happen.
Was this something of a negative nature that you saw?
Yeah, there were I predicted back then that in 2005 there would be a breakdown of the economic system and well, really nasty stuff in the United States, because that's what I'd seen. I was demonstrating a little electronic device that I have had some very strange experiences with on this TV documentary. Now, the thing is that what I saw, it was there in the super creation, but it didn't happen in the timeline I am now. So something changed, and the only thing that I can see that changed it was that I ended up in a different timeline by making some different decisions. But what I saw, one of the incidences, what I saw was that I strapped this electronic device on me, put the magnet where it should be, and I had the time coil around my head and all this. If you find the video on the internet, I think you can still find it. It's called Time Trip by BBC Television. Time Trip, and you'll see how it works. And what I saw was that I saw myself walking down the street, and I walked up to a newspaper stand, and I looked on the front page of the newspaper in that newspaper stand, and I read some of the things on the front page. That is one of the things I talked about. But that didn't happen, luckily. So I've been right on a lot of other things, but this one didn't happen, and God, I'm glad it didn't.
Us too. I'd say so. I mean, just total economic collapse. Now, I mean, this was before 2008, though. So. Oh
yeah, that was 2003.
So if things had gone badly, I mean, maybe a different way in 2008, you never know. I mean, maybe you were closer than you thought at that point.
Yeah. In fact, if you go to the internet and read all the stuff out there now that they say, oh, this is going to be bad news, we're weeks away from a total economic collapse because the stock market is, they're just way overpriced and the commodities are down and, government is broke and all that good stuff. Yeah, well, of course it is, but it's not going to be that bad. I have not seen that happen. I think we're good now until after the elections. There's going to be a reset of all global currencies. And that will be a substance-backed currency. And the way that both I've seen it and what they plan to do is, what they're going to do, they're going to take all global currencies, devalue them by 90%, and then they're going to raise the price of gold to about $30,000 an ounce and silver to about $15,000 an ounce. And then by doing that, and they add oil to it and add land to it and assets to it as backing of the currencies for the individual countries. And then they have enough value to cover the remaining 10% of debt. So now you have a global substance-backed business currency. It's a brilliant idea. It could really work.
Is this after Trump is elected president?
I'm sorry, say again?
Is this after Trump is elected president?
I am not so sure, but I don't see it happen before the elections. I think we have another year.
I was being a little facetious. I just want. Do you have any predictions on who's going to win 2016?
Okay. No, no, but I think that there's some individual resets that'll happen before that, and that's minor things like I can see the Iraqi dinar coming online, and I see other currencies being reset because they are coming online because of their the countries decide to do it separate from the others.
So we're looking at 2017 for this.
Very likely 2016 something. Yeah, I don't know. That's in there somewhere.
You know, I was watching Jimmy Kimmel the other night, and Hillary made a special appearance, and she's sitting at a table with some children, and they're having like this little dialogue, you know, back and forth, making jokes, you know, with the children and stuff, and their ignorance about politics because they're really young children, you know, 5-6 years old, and one of the kids asked Hillary, "Are you going to be our next president?" She goes, "Yes, I." And then she corrects herself really quick. She's like, well, I'm trying my best to." so just a split second, she says, "Yes, I am," you know, and then she changes it really quick.
Yeah, she's sure of it. Well, Aage, go ahead.
That's when she shot herself in the foot.
Yeah, excellent, absolutely. Well, Aage, we were almost out of time, but tell everyone where they can get your book and where they can contact you.
Okay, if they want to read this book, what I'm doing in the book, I'm teaching people how to access that universal consciousness and teach them also what to do with it when they do make the connection consciously. And I have a lot of success principles that you can only find out about talking to billionaires in there, and the creation and a lot of the things that is so far outside the box that you can't even see the box from there. And you can go to a website of course, you can go to Amazon and type my name in. That's the quickest way actually to get the book. And that is a first name, of course, Aage, last name Nost. And the website where you can get it from my website is www.spiritual-sciences.net.
And I'll have a link in the show notes to that as well.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, spiritual-sciences.net. And also go to my Facebook page. There's a lot of information about some of these things. And I also have a Facebook blog, which there will be a link to from my Facebook page.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Aage. You've been a very excellent guest. We've enjoyed having you on. We'll have to have you on to talk about UFOs. So we really didn't cover that, and that's one of we love to talk about that on this show. So
that one will be really far out there because there's so much happening right now, and there's evidence of it. And wait until you see what's on the moon, or when you hear what's on the moon. That's where it's all happening right now.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being on. Stay on the line for us. We're going to close this section out, and we'll be right back on Conspirinormal.
All right, we're back on Conspirinormal. It's a great interview with Mr. Aage Nost.
Woot woot.
Did I get that right?
Yeah, I think so.
Adam's a
Aage
juggalo.
Nost.
Adam's face is all painted up right now.
Yeah, I'm a clown. I'm a juggalo, homie.
You've been hanging out with Daniel from Pizza Hut.
Yeah, you were getting into that one. I think you really enjoyed some of that stuff.
You know me, man. Like I've always been interested in fluoride, not in chlorine. Actually, these days I'm more on to chlorine than I am fluoride because I read some pretty bad shit about chlorine too. And anybody else can go to Google Scholar and just type in chlorine and find all kinds of abstracts because you actually have to pay for like the full essays. But you can read the abstracts on Google Scholar.
a lot of it's in like scientific journals and stuff.
Yes, and the language is so complicated.
Yeah. Rob, what did you think of that interview, man?
It was interesting. It was quite a range of stuff he covered.
You kind of look like a Syrian refugee right now. You're all bundled up.
I feel like a little lady with my blanket on my lap.
Dude, that
Whistler's
is
mother's in here.
that is a badass Afghan too.
Yeah.
That looks cool.
No, I like a lot of the. I mean, I identify with a lot of that. Kind of projecting your positivity or thought into the future, and that sort of a concept. I really think there's something to all that. As far as other dimensions and seeing the future, I don't know. I've never really tried. But
the thing is that, like, he mentioned towards the end there about seeing the future and getting a prediction wrong, and all the stuff about parallel universes. I mean, he could have been actually viewing a parallel universe.
Well, it always makes me think of you ever read the Dune books at all?
I have read the first Dune.
Well,
the first one.
It talks a lot about how like they'll overdose on the spice and be able to predict the future. But if you got that many people predicting the future and looking into the future and changing things, every minute little thing you change is changing the future again. So it starts to get cloudy and hard to predict. And
right.
If there's more than one, which I'm sure if he's doing this, there's other people out there doing this. It's you could make a prediction and then tomorrow somebody else can come along and make a different prediction and screw your prediction all up. And
I tried my best to watch that movie, dude. Dune. I fell asleep.
Which one? Because there's like two different versions. There's
we had the whole like 4 VHS box set back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
And I tried watching it.
You had the David Lynch version, which I remember kind of liking when I was a kid. And there's like two different versions of it, man. There's like a director's cut that's like 4 hours long, and then there's another one that's like 2.5 or almost 3. And actually, I read the book when I was in like college, the first book. I haven't read any of the other ones, and like I was just like, David Lynch just kind of made it a really weird kind of movie, which is like pretty natural for David Lynch. And I'm reading this book and I'm like, this is really about like, well, first of all, it's about like oil and in the Middle East. And then second of all, it's more like a medieval empire, but it's in, 10,000 years AD. And it's like all these different like factions battling out over control of resources. And like, that's more what it was. And then there's like a sci-fi, like the Sci-Fi Channel redid it in like the late 90s. And I thought it was like much better the way that they did it.
I've never seen that one.
Then it's kind of like how Stephen King didn't really like The Shining, Stanley Kubrick's version. And then he went and did his own version later on, which was much more true to the book, actually. But I felt like that version of Dune was much more true. Was much more true to the book.
Stephen King's version, you said?
Oh no, Stephen King. That's The Shining.
Oh,
but was it Frank Herbert? Was the guy who wrote the Dune books? Have you read them all?
The first 3.
There's like Children of Dune and
so
Messiah.
Which one should I watch then?
I would watch the Sci-Fi Channel miniseries that came out in like the late or 90s or early 2000s. It was much more
palatable.
Yeah, it's much better. Like that movie. I mean, it's okay, but it's just. It's like it's just unless you hadn't read the books, you wouldn't know what was going on.
Yeah, the themes get lost too, which is kind of sad.
And all the internal monologues and stuff in that movie, and like
I couldn't handle it, dude.
Yeah, it will probably more than likely put you to sleep. There's some good actors in it. I mean, you got some real powerhouse actors in that movie, but it's like, well, Patrick Stewart's in it. I mean, right before Star Trek, but. I mean, it's. I would probably recommend the miniseries. You get a better idea of what the kind of like how the book is set up. So if you could find it, I don't know if it's probably has been released, but I guess with Aage stuff. I mean, he's what we would consider like new age, and when we started getting into the Nibiru stuff, I just started kind of. I think my pineal gland started to calcify then. But you got kind of like a funny story about like the whole Nibiru thing, like with your mom.
Oh yeah. I've talked about it before on an episode way back. No one's probably listened to. It's that far back, but yeah. My mom is she's always been into some strange things. She's kind of far out there. She doesn't do any drugs. Like every once in a while, she might smoke a little pot if me or my brother have some over there. But she joined.
We don't condone that on this show. By the
no,
way.
we don't. I'm very Christian, and I.
Sorry, I didn't mean to laugh.
Praise Jesus. But anyway, so my mom like joined this space cult, and when I say join, like she didn't actually like physically go to any kind of space cult meetings or anything.
Was this Ashtar Command?
As Ashtar Command, yeah. And Ashtar is Jesus. Like if you look at the artist rendering of Ashtar,
it's like Lord Veranda or some crap like that.
That's kind of like a someone who channels the message through the Ashtar. You
got a lot of that going on in the New Age.
Yeah, there's a hierarchy there.
Yeah,
but Ashtar is supposed to be Jesus, and if you look at the artist rendering, it's like Jesus with a helmet on. Like it's
right.
It's like this helmet that a 70s dirt bike rider would would wear. but when I say she joined, all that consists of is that she just subscribed to a newsletter, and that person that you just mentioned, I can't remember. What'd you say that their name was?
I can't remember it. It's something like that, like Veranda
Zariah or something like that. Yeah. Well, he or she writes these newsletters about how Ashtar is going to come soon, and he's going to fix everything in our economy. And don't worry, Earthlings, like we're watching up above, and we're here to help you and spread peace and love and joy and all this kind of stuff. So it just plays on people's emotions that are
Well, you also had to brush off the dust from Nibiru.
Yeah, she calls me up one day. I have to, I call her like twice a month just to check in on her. She lives about an hour and a half away from me, so I call her a few times a month to check in on her. And one day she says, I was out walking around the property and I noticed this red dust in the creek bed. She's like, I can't figure out what it is. She's like, I think it's maybe the dust from Nibiru because it's supposed to be close by. I'm like, first of all, don't you think that we could see a planet bigger than Jupiter, like looming somewhere in the sky? I don't know. That might be noticeable,
It's close enough it's getting dust on us.
Yeah. And second of all, like the red stuff in the creek beds, iron deposits, gets carried, through with the water and coats limestone. But where was I going with that? Nibiru. I'm not a subscriber to Nibiru.
Yeah, I think from like we've had Dr. Heiser come on and talk about it. I don't think any of us are. It's kind of hard to buy it just from the point of supposedly we have this planet that's circling through, or it could be a brown dwarf. Now, there are some interesting things, but I don't know necessarily if Nibiru has anything to do with it.
I've even heard the theory that the entire planet of Nibiru is a spaceship that's been hollowed out, and the reason that we can't see it is because it's very precisely being it has a mirrored surface or a mirrored atmosphere. And
that would probably make more sense than it just being a random planet.
Yeah. Well, what about gravitational pull? That's a big issue. Right there.
How could life survive on a planet that supposedly goes out of the orbit of Pluto? I mean, it would be so far from the sun.
Yeah,
it would almost have to be an artificial construction.
The accepted theory that I've heard is that they have their civilization inside the planet.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. It'd be an artificial construction.
Yeah, and it protects them.
Well, not much to say on the supposed UFO sighting in California last night. We're recording this on the 8th of November, but there was supposedly like there's like this light was seen everywhere in California.
That one looked like that one that was in like Russia or something.
Yeah,
weird.
Yeah, people were saying it was a meteor. People were saying it was a UFO, and supposedly the Navy or someone has come out and said that it was a Trident missile launch. But there's also a lot of debate on that too. Yeah. So
I'm personally, I'm kind of riding the fence on all that, man. It's hard to tell because I think it's very possible there's a lot of cover-ups going on, and at the same time, it's like, you know, what a massive orchestrated effort to cover up every UFO sighting ever. You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's hard to say.
Yeah. You know, Halloween is over. We're going into Christmas. And it is now time, since all the people that, all the evangelicals that are out there that are screaming on the internet about how evil Halloween was, now that Halloween is over, we can move that to the war on Christmas. And apparently Starbucks has decided to oppress us. 'Tis the season for war on Christmas stories, and this year Starbucks is the first major group to offend due to its holiday-themed red cups. Last week, the coffee giant unveiled the design of this year's cups, which have become something of a Starbucks tradition. The company's designers went for a minimalist look with a bright poppy color on top that shades into a darker cranberry below. Don't you just love that? We have anchored the design with the classic Starbucks holiday red that is bright and exciting, said Jeffrey Fields, Starbucks Vice President of Design and Content. The ombre creates a distinctive dimension, fluidity, and weightedness. Sure, why not? But the design looks slightly different than years past, which have featured snowflakes and other wintry icons. This absence of holiday symbols is, of course, making people furious. The Starbucks coffee cup change smells more of political correctness than a consumer-led change, British Conservative MP David Burrows told right-wing website Breitbart London. What is it about Christmas that Starbucks are afraid of celebrating? The Christian Institute's Simon Calvert told Breitbart. Haven't they heard it the most wonderful time of the year and the season of goodwill to all men? They should get involved and stop being Scrooges. People are mad, and they've taken to Twitter, much like with Exorcism Live. My Christmas mentality, if a store won't promote Christmas re Starbucks, I'm not sending my hard-earned money there. Starbucks red cups have erased any sense of Christmas after years of, at the very least, upholding a capitalistic post-Victorian image of the Christian holiday. I won't be gifting any Starbucks gift cards for Christmas. Starbucks hates Christians, but love our money. Since you're running away from Christianity, I'm running away from you, just exercising my financial choice. A lot of this came up because there was this guy, Josh Firestein, who is a preacher and apparently a well-loved YouTuber. That he kind of looks like Kevin James, the actor, with a beard. And apparently he kind of talks like this. Hey guys, this is Josh Firestein. He's kind of got he sounds like he's in the WWE or something.
I talk with presence. I talk like I'm important.
I'm an important person, and you should listen to me because I can drown everyone else out. And so he gets on there and he said that he told the barista that his name was Merry Christmas, so they wrote Merry Christmas on there because Starbucks is apparently oppressing and persecuting Christians now.
Yeah.
So this is the kind of stuff that we'll get to hear at least through the end of December 25th about how Christmas is under attack and blah, 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 blah. Even though, people are dying and being actually persecuted and oppressed in Syria. And we're not going to do, people are going to get all worked over this, but not over the homeless and starvation and poverty and war. And that's just my own personal take on that. So, yeah. Anyway.
I've started to come up with, I haven't actually mapped it out yet, but I've started to come up with this graph of hipsterdom. and it like goes from like level 1 to level 10.
Yeah,
and I would call someone like a level 10 hipster like someone that lives in New York, and they have like the fanciest like little $10,000 a month like apartment, and that knows like every kind of social reference and cool clever quips all the time, and then like on your first level hipster is just it's like, I guess I'd be close to that. We would all be close to like level 1 hipsters,
level 1 hipster,
and somewhere in the middle, level 5 is where you got like the East Nashvillians. They're wearing the skinny jeans and the toboggans halfway on their head, and
if I shave everything but the mustache, where does that put me?
Put the mustache. You get I'd say about a level 3.
Awesome.
Level 3
because that's
well,
just,
I mean, you do have like a large like 1970s style turntable in your house now.
Actually, it's 68. No, I love my turntable. I mean, hey, sometimes hipsters get things right, dude.
Well,
maybe that kicks me up to level 2.
Speaking of old music, we're going to play a song to close tonight's show out, and this is a song by the Dynamic Capers, and called Alligator Wine, which is actually a Screaming Jay Hawkins song. But, Luke, you kind of have a personal connection to this.
Yeah, my girlfriend's grandpa, he's the singer in that band, and I guess he's kind of ashamed of it. He's a really conservative guy. He's real traditional and stuff. So I wouldn't want to ask him more of the story myself, but just what I heard from Kira, or my girlfriend's grandma, what happened back in the 60s when they were a band. They couldn't get any radio played because the Nashville radio stations apparently just wanted to play, the bands that were black. And they thought that the Dynamic Capers were black, and that's why they were getting the radio play. I guess it just had to do with that specific station, maybe.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like to me. But they were denied the radio, or after they found out that it's a band full of white guys, like they were denied radio play, and they took all of their 78s to the Shelby Street Bridge and just threw them all off in the water and just gave up on the band. And so when you ask him about it today, I've never even met the guy, but from what I hear is if you bring it up or talk about it, he just changes the subject or he's embarrassed about it. So it's just cool to hear about like a little piece of history, right here in your hometown, and bands going that far back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And especially how much people change, because you would see someone like that's a conservative farmer type guy, and never expect that he would have a band like that or be involved in something like that when he was younger.
Right. Yeah, it's very cool. It's like a piece of history, and you never knew about it. Like you never knew that it existed. Like kind of like a time and place. The whole like 60s garage rock was going on.
Yeah, and it also seems to me, like you mentioned, it's just a cover. It also seems to me like everybody was just doing covers.
Yeah, that was a big thing at that time. It was a lot of doing like a lot of covers of like blues standards or different songs. Like the song "Hey Joe" that Hendrix recorded was probably done like several times by several different like kind of garage bands at that time. So that was a big thing. So that's nothing too unusual that there would be a cover of that.
Yeah.
So, but we're going to play it here at the end of the show. Just a couple of show notes, guys. We are approaching episode 100. We do have something cool for that. But next time, in 2 weeks, we will have Elliot Marzulli coming back on the show. And we're going to talk about his new book, and Days of Chaos, and his video Watchers 9. This will be probably some interesting stuff. So, guys, thanks a lot for listening. We're gonna close out the show, and thanks for coming and joining us on Conspirinormal.
You got any French fries?
Take a blow! black bat wings and some green swamp slime. Mix them up all together, and you done got alligator wine. Alligator wine. You old fat swine, it's gonna make you mine. Maybe at the stroke of midnight, down by the swamps in the woods, I'm gonna make you love me, baby, like you never thought you could. You're gonna feel like you was drunk from drinking up on that turpentine. When you sip my lovely love juice,